They called me stubborn. They called me obsessed. But I didn't care, because every failure was just another step forward. Every setback, an invitation to invent again. Most people stop at the first sign of resistance. I never did. And that's why you're watching this. Because something inside you knows that comfort kills creativity, that safety smothers genius, that if you want to build something extraordinary, you need to think like an inventor, relentless, resourceful, unstoppable. This isn't just about ideas. It's about identity. Subscribe to our channel if you're ready to master your mind, and tell us, where are you watching from? Vision over visibility. Let me tell you something about vision that most people will never understand. When I first started working on the electric light, do you know what everyone around me saw? Darkness, pure, impenetrable darkness. But in my mind, I saw entire cities illuminated, streets glowing with the warm embrace of electric light, homes freed from the dangerous flicker of gas lamps. They said it couldn't be done. The experts claimed it was impossible. But here's what separates inventors from dreamers. We don't need external validation to move forward. We don't wait for permission slips from reality. You see, most people are waiting for proof before they act. They want guarantees. They want to see the path clearly laid out before them. But innovation doesn't work that way. Innovation demands that you step into the darkness, guided only by the light of your conviction. When I worked in that laboratory in Menlo Park, I wasn't following a map, I was drawing one. Every failed experiment, every burnt-out filament, every skeptical headline in the newspapers, they were all just temporary circumstances. But my vision, that was permanent, unshakable. Let me ask you something. What vision keeps you awake? At night? What possibility burns in your mind so bright that others call you crazy for pursuing it? That's your compass. That's your true north. The world is full of people who will tell you what's impossible. They'll give you 1,000 reasons why your idea won't work. And you know what? They might even have some valid points. But here's what they don't understand. Vision isn't about what's probable. It's about what's possible. I didn't see thousands of failed attempts at creating the light bulb. I saw thousands of ways that didn't work. Yet, each failure was just another step toward the vision. Because when you're truly guided by vision, setbacks don't set you back. They push you forward. You must understand this fundamental truth. The greatest inventions, the most revolutionary breakthroughs, they all started as impossible ideas in someone's mind. The telephone, the automobile, the airplane, every single one of them was dismissed by rational people who couldn't see beyond their current reality. But you're different. You're here because something inside you knows that the future isn't something we wait for. It's something we invent. You don't need the world's permission to start. You don't need society's blessing to pursue what you know is possible. Your vision is your authority. Your conviction is your credential. The only validation you need is the unwavering belief in what you see in your mind's eye. So let them doubt. Let them question. Let them stay comfortable in their limited view of what's possible. You have work to do. You have a future to build. And the only thing you need to see clearly is the vision that keeps pulling you forward. Remember, great inventors don't wait for visibility. They move on vision. Now, what future are you ready to invent? Obsession is a virtue. Let me tell you about the night I first succeeded with the phonograph. I worked for 20 hours straight, barely breathing, completely lost in the possibility of capturing sound. My assistants had gone home. The world outside had gone quiet. But in that laboratory, time didn't exist. There was only the work, the problem, the solution waiting to be found. Society has taught you that obsession is dangerous, that it's something to be medicated, moderated, managed. They tell you to find balance or to maintain healthy boundaries. But here's what they don't understand. Every significant breakthrough in human history came from someone who was gloriously, magnificently obsessed. When I say obsession is a virtue, I'm not talking about the kind that destroys. I'm talking about the kind that builds, the kind that creates. the kind that refuses to let go until the impossible becomes possible. You see, most people dabble. They work on something until it gets difficult. Then they retreat to comfort. They call it taking a break. But what they're really doing is avoiding the depth that true innovation demands. They're afraid of losing themselves in the work. But that's exactly where the magic happens. I didn't create the light bulb by maintaining a comfortable 9-to-5 schedule. I didn't perfect the phonograph by giving myself convenient stopping points. I went deep. I went all in. Sometimes I would work for 72 hours straight, stopping only when my body physically couldn't continue. My wife would bring meals to the laboratory because she knew I wouldn't remember to eat. Was this extreme? Absolutely. Was it necessary? Without question. Here's what nobody tells you about true innovation. It requires a level of focus that most people would consider unhealthy. You have to be willing to lose track of time, to forget about social obligations, to miss meals, to let the world think you've gone mad. But there's a secret about this kind of obsession that few understand. It doesn't drain you, it feeds you. When you're working on something that truly matters, when you're pushing the boundaries of what's possible, you don't need to force yourself to focus. The work pulls you in. It becomes more compelling than sleep, more nourishing than food. I had a cot in my laboratory, not because I was a workaholic, but because sometimes the gap between question and answer was longer than a day. Sometimes the distance between problem and solution demanded every ounce of attention I could give it. Now, I'm not suggesting you abandon your life. I'm suggesting you find something worth abandoning everything else for. Something that makes your heart race. When you think about it, something that keeps you up at night, not because you're worried, but because you're excited. The world doesn't need more balanced people. It needs more obsessed innovators, more driven creators, more people willing to dive so deep into their work that they forget to check their social media. You see, the difference between mediocrity and mastery isn't talent, it's intensity. It's the willingness to give yourself completely to your craft, to let it consume you, to let it transform you. When people called me obsessed, I took it as a compliment, because obsession isn't a disorder, it's a superpower. It's the force that turns impossible dreams into everyday realities. So let me ask you, what would you do if you gave yourself permission to be obsessed? What could you create if you stopped apologizing for your intensity? What might you invent if you allowed yourself to go all in? Remember, obsession isn't your enemy, it's your edge. Use it. Failure is forward motion. They love to talk about my 10,000 failures with the light bulb. The newspapers made it their favorite story. Edison, the man who failed thousands of times, but they missed the most important part of that story. I never counted failures, I counted discoveries. Let me tell you what really happened in that laboratory. Every time a filament burned out too quickly, we learned something. Every time a vacuum seal broke, we gained knowledge. Every time our calculations were wrong, we got closer to being right. You see, most people see failure as a wall. I saw it as a stepping stone. Here's what separates true inventors from mere dreamers. We don't just accept failure, we actively seek it out. We chase it down. We extract its wisdom. While others run from negative results, we mine them for insights. You want to know the real secret of the light bulb? It wasn't persistence. It wasn't genius. It was our ability to turn every failed attempt into a question. What does this teach us? What does this make possible? What do we know now that we didn't know before? I remember one particular night. We had just tested our 500th filament material. It failed spectacularly, sparked, sizzled, and died in seconds. My assistants were devastated, but I was ecstatic. Why? Because now we knew with absolute certainty that this material, under these specific conditions, would never work. That knowledge was priceless. Most people don't understand this fundamental truth. Failure isn't the opposite of progress. It is progress. Every failed experiment is a data point. Every setback is a setup for a breakthrough. Every wrong turn eliminates a path that won't work, bringing you closer to the one that will. Let me ask you something. What if you started treating your failures like experiments? What if every setback became a setup? What if every no became a not yet? In my laboratory, we had a rule. Never call it a failure. Call it a result. Because that's what it is, a result. It might not be the result you wanted, but it's still valuable information. It's still forward motion. You see, the problem isn't that people fail. The problem is that they fail small. They fail once or twice and then retreat. They let failure stop them instead of guide them. But real innovation requires massive failure, comprehensive failure. Failure at a scale that would break most people's spirit. When we were working on the storage battery, we conducted over 50,000 experiments. 50,000. Most people won't try something 50 times, let alone 50,000. But each experiment, successful or not, was movement in the right direction. Here's what you need to understand. The path to any significant breakthrough is paved with countless failures. But these failures aren't your enemy. They're your education. They're not stopping you. They're showing you the way. I didn't succeed despite my thousands of failures. I succeeded because of them. Each failed attempt eliminated one more way. That wouldn't work, bringing me one step closer to the way that would. The light bulb didn't come from a single moment of genius. It came from thousands of moments of failure, each one interpreted correctly, each one moving us forward, each one illuminating the path to eventual success. So stop fearing failure. Stop avoiding it. Start pursuing it. Start collecting it. Start learning from it. Because failure isn't falling down, it's falling forward. And forward is exactly where you need to go. Remember, every failure is a step forward if you're brave enough to keep walking. Now, what failure are you ready to turn into your next breakthrough? Think in terms of systems. Here's what most people don't understand about the light bulb. The bulb itself was the easy part. The real challenge? Creating an entire world where that bulb could thrive, because a light bulb without a power grid is just an elegant paperweight. When most people think about invention, they think about single objects, a device, a gadget, a tool. But true inventors, we think in systems. We see the invisible web of connections that make any innovation possible. Let me show you what I mean. When we created the light bulb, we weren't just inventing a glass orb with a glowing filament. We were building power plants, designing distribution networks, creating safety systems, developing installation protocols, training electricians, writing user manuals, establishing pricing models, building factories to mass-produce every component. You see, the greatest invention in the world is worthless without its ecosystem. It's like having a magnificent engine with no fuel, no road, and no driver. The system is the innovation. This is where most inventors fail. They fall in love with their idea, but ignore the system it needs to survive. They create brilliant solutions, but neglect the infrastructure those solutions need to thrive. They build the bird, but forget about the nest. In my laboratory at Menlo Park, we didn't just test individual components, we tested entire systems. When we worked on the phonograph, we weren't just thinking about how to capture sound. We were thinking about how people would use it in their homes, how they would store their recordings, how the devices would be manufactured, distributed, and maintained. Here's a truth that took me years to understand. Every great invention is actually a system of inventions. The telephone wasn't just about voice transmission. It was about creating a network that could connect millions of people. The automobile wasn't just about the engine. It was about roads, gas stations, repair shops, and an entire culture of mobility. Let me ask you something. When you look at your own ideas, are you seeing the whole system? Or are you still trapped in object thinking? Most people get overwhelmed when they start thinking in systems. They see the complexity and retreat to simpler territory. But here's the secret. You don't have to build the entire system at once. You just have to understand it, map it, plan for it. In my work, I always started with three questions. What does this invention need to function perfectly? What does it need to function consistently? What does it need to function permanently? The answers to these questions reveal the system your invention requires. They show you the infrastructure you need to build. They illuminate the path from interesting idea to world-changing innovation. Think about the electric light system we built. We didn't just solve technical problems. We solved human problems. We had to make electricity safe enough that people would welcome it into their homes, affordable enough that they could pay for it, simple enough that they could use it. Without fear. This is the difference between inventors who create curiosities and inventors who change the world. System thinking. The ability to see not just the thing itself, but everything the thing needs to succeed. When you start thinking in systems, you start seeing opportunities everywhere. Because every broken system is an invitation to innovate. Every incomplete system is a chance to create. Every inefficient system is a challenge to solve. Remember, your invention is not just the thing you create, it's the entire ecosystem that makes that thing possible. Build the system, and your invention will thrive. Neglect the system, and even the most brilliant idea will wither and die. So let me challenge you. Take your biggest idea and map its ecosystem. What does it need to survive, to thrive, to change the world? Because that's where your real work begins. Marry grit with curiosity. Let me tell you about the day I first became fascinated with telegraphy. I was a young boy watching a telegraph operator at work. The clicking of the key, the mysterious dots and dashes. It sparked something in me. But here's what matters. I didn't just wonder about it. I didn't just admire it. I spent the next several years mastering it, working as an operator, improving the technology. You see, there's a dangerous myth in the world of innovation that curiosity alone is enough. That if you're interested enough, passionate enough, creative enough, success will follow. But I'm here to tell you that's a half-truth. And half-truths are more dangerous than lies. Curiosity without grit is just daydreaming. Grit without curiosity is just grinding. You need both. The curiosity to ask, what if? And the grit to find out how. I've seen countless brilliant minds fail because they couldn't bridge this gap. They had magnificent ideas but lacked the tenacity to execute them. Or they had tremendous work ethic but never lifted their eyes to see new possibilities. Either way, their potential remained unrealized. In my laboratory, we had a saying, questions are free, but answers cost everything. Anyone can ask interesting questions. Anyone can have creative ideas. But turning those questions into answers, those ideas into reality, that takes something more. That takes grit. Let me show you what this marriage looks like in practice. When we were developing the storage battery, my curiosity led me to experiment with thousands of materials. But it was grit that kept me going through 50,000 experiments. Curiosity showed me the possibility. Grit showed me the way. Here's what most people don't understand. True innovation happens at the intersection of these two forces. Curiosity opens doors. Grit walks through them. Curiosity spots opportunities. Grit seizes them. Curiosity dreams. Grit builds. I remember one of my assistants, brilliant young man, curious about everything. He'd start each new project with incredible enthusiasm. But as soon as the work became difficult, as soon as it required real persistence, he'd find something new to be curious about. His curiosity was endless, but his grit was shallow. He never created anything significant. Then there was another. Assistant, hard-working, persistent, could work for days without tiring. But he lacked curiosity. He'd solve the problems in front of him, but never ask what other problems might be worth solving. His grit was tremendous, but his curiosity was limited. He never innovated anything new. But when you find someone who has both, when you meet a person whose curiosity drives them to ask bold questions and whose grit drives them to find answers, that's when magic happens. That's when the impossible becomes possible. Let me ask you, which side are you favoring? Are you all curiosity and no follow-through? All persistence but no imagination? Because until you develop both, you're operating at half capacity. You must train both muscles. Feed your curiosity, read widely, ask questions, explore new fields, but also build your grit, push through difficulties, embrace challenges, develop resilience. One without the other is like trying to clap with one hand. In my own life, curiosity got me interested in electric light, but grit kept me going through thousands of failed experiments. Curiosity made me wonder if sound could be recorded, but grit helped me perfect the phonograph. Curiosity sparked the questions. Grit found the answers. Remember, the world is full of curious dreamers and determined workers. But the ones who change the world, they're the ones who combine both. They're the ones who marry grit with curiosity. So tell me, what are you curious about right now? And more importantly, how much grit are you willing to apply to that curiosity? Start before you're ready. Let me tell you about Edwin Barnes. He showed up at my laboratory one day unannounced, with nothing but determination in his pockets. No credentials, no introduction, no expertise, just an unshakable belief that he would become my business partner. Most people would have waited. They would have gotten more education, made connections, waited for the perfect moment. But Barnes? He jumped on a freight train with barely enough money for a ticket. He didn't wait until he was ready. He started, then got ready along the way. Here's what most people don't understand about innovation. If you wait until you're ready, you'll be waiting forever. The world moves too fast for perfect preparation. The time you spend getting ready is time your competitors spend getting ahead. I never finished school, never got a formal education in electrical engineering, never took a business course. If I had waited until I was qualified to start inventing, you'd be watching this by candlelight. You see, there's a peculiar paradox in innovation. The very act of starting creates the capability to succeed. You don't become an inventor by studying. Invention. You become an inventor by inventing. You don't learn to innovate by reading about innovation. You learn by innovating. Let me ask you something. What are you waiting for? What arbitrary line of readiness have you drawn in the sand? What imaginary qualification are you using as an excuse not to begin? I remember when I first started experimenting with electric light. Did I know everything about electricity? No. Did I understand all the principles of illumination? No. Did I have all the resources I needed? Absolutely not. But I started anyway, because here's the truth. The perfect moment is a myth. The right time is now. In my laboratory, we had a principle. Imperfect action beats perfect preparation every time. We didn't wait until we had everything figured out. We started with what we had, learned what we needed, and built the rest along. The way most people get this backwards, they think they need to become someone before they can do something. But that's not how it works. You become someone by doing something. You become an inventor by inventing. You become an innovator by innovating. You become successful by starting before you're ready. Barnes understood this. He didn't wait until he had the right connections. He didn't wait until he had the perfect resume. He started, and you know what? He did become my business partner. He helped commercialize the dictating machine and became a millionaire in the process. Here's another truth about starting before you're ready. It gives you an edge over the qualified competition. While they're perfecting their preparations, you're gaining real-world experience. While they're analyzing, you're acting. While they're getting ready, you're getting results. I've seen countless qualified people fail because they were paralyzed by their own expertise. They knew so much about what could go wrong that they never discovered what could go right. Meanwhile, the unqualified ones, the ones who started before they were ready, they were the ones who changed the world. Think about every major innovation in history. The Wright brothers weren't aeronautical engineers. Ford wasn't a formally trained mechanic. Bell wasn't a licensed electrician. But they all started before they were ready. They all learned by doing. Starting before you're ready doesn't mean being reckless. It means being resourceful. It means learning as you go. It means building the bridge while you're walking on it. Remember, the world doesn't reward people who wait until they're ready. It rewards people who start before they're ready and then get ready on the job. So, let me challenge you. What could you start today? What first step could you take right now? Because the perfect moment you're waiting for, it's not coming. But your moment, it's right here, right now. Let the world doubt you. When I first announced that I would create a light that burned without flame, without gas, powered by electricity alone, do you know what the newspapers called me? A fraud, a dreamer, a man chasing impossible fantasies. The gas companies laughed. The experts scoffed. Even other inventors said it couldn't be done. But here's what I understood then, and what you need to understand now. Doubt from others is not a stop sign, it's a starting gun. You see, every truly revolutionary idea begins its life being ridiculed. Every paradigm-shifting innovation starts by being called impossible. This isn't a bug in the system of progress. It's a feature. It's nature's way of testing if you're serious about your vision. Let me tell you about the day I demonstrated the phonograph for the first time. I brought it to the office of Scientific American, and do you know what they did? They accused me of ventriloquism. They couldn't believe that a machine could capture and replay the human voice. It was too far beyond their conception of possible. But here's what most people don't understand about doubt. It's actually a compass. When people doubt your idea, when they call it impossible, when they label it absurd, that's often a sign you're onto something truly innovative. Because if your idea didn't challenge their assumptions, if it didn't threaten their comfort, why would they doubt it at all? I've learned to use skepticism as fuel. Every dismissive comment, every mocking article, every expert's declaration of impossibility, these became logs in my fire. They didn't extinguish my determination. They ignited it. Let me ask you something. What are people doubting about your vision right now? What are they calling impossible? What are they saying can't be done? Pay attention to those doubts. They're often pointing directly at your breakthrough. In my laboratory, we had a saying, the more they doubt, the more we prove. We didn't waste energy defending our ideas. We invested that energy in demonstrating them. Because here's another truth about doubt. It can't survive in the face of results. Most people make the mistake of trying to convince their doubters. They waste precious time and energy arguing, explaining, defending. But true inventors, we let our work do the talking. We let our results silence the skeptics. When people said electric light would never replace gas, I didn't argue. I built a power station. When they said the phonograph was impossible, I didn't debate. I made them listen to recorded sound. When they claimed my battery wouldn't work, I didn't protest. I powered cars with it. Here's what you need to understand about revolutionary innovation. It will always face doubt. Always. Because true innovation, by definition, challenges what people believe is possible. It disrupts their comfortable assumptions. It threatens their established ways of thinking. The gas companies didn't doubt electric light because they thought it was impossible. They doubted it because they were afraid it was possible. The more they fought against it, the more they confirmed its potential. This is the paradox of innovation. The more revolutionary your idea, the more resistance it will face. The more transformative your vision, the more people will doubt it. This isn't a sign you're on the wrong path. It's often a sign you're onto something extraordinary. But remember this, doubt has an expiration date. Results don't. When I finally illuminated entire city blocks with electric light, the doubters didn't just fall silent, they became believers. When the phonograph played back perfect recordings of the human voice, the skeptics didn't just stop doubting. They started wondering what else was possible. You see, the best way to handle doubt is not to fight it, but to use it. Let it sharpen your focus. Let it fuel your determination. Let it remind you that you're pushing boundaries that need to be pushed. So, let them doubt. Let them question. Let them call it impossible. Your job isn't to convince them. Your job is to prove them wrong through relentless execution and undeniable results. Remember, the world's doubt is often the universe's way of telling you you're onto something big. Now, What impossible thing are you ready to make possible? Build while they sleep. Let me tell you about the night we finally got the light bulb to work. It wasn't during business hours. It wasn't during what most people would call a reasonable workday. It was at 3 o'clock in the morning after 40 straight hours of testing. While the world slept, we created light. You see, innovation doesn't punch a time clock. Breakthroughs don't schedule themselves between 9 and 5. The most significant advances in human history weren't made during comfortable business hours. They were made in the margins, in the extra hours, in the time most people throw away. Here's what most people don't understand about extraordinary achievement. It's built in extraordinary hours. While others rest, you work. While others recover, you advance. While others wait for tomorrow, you seize tonight. In my laboratory at Menlo Park, we didn't just work longer hours, we worked different hours. When the rest of the world went dark, we were still there, still experimenting, still pushing forward, not because we had to, but because those quiet hours held something special, something powerful. Let me tell you what happens in those late hours, in those early mornings, in those moments when most of the world is sleeping. First, the distractions fade, the constant interruptions cease. The world gets quiet, and your mind gets clear. Second, you enter a different state of consciousness. Problems that seemed impossible during the day suddenly reveal their solutions. Connections that were invisible become obvious. But here's the real secret about working while others sleep. It's not just about the quantity of hours, it's about their quality. 1 hour of focused work at 3 a.m. can be worth more than 8 hours of distracted work during the day. I remember one particular project where we were stuck on a technical problem. During the day, we made little progress, too many interruptions, too many distractions, too many competing demands. But late at night, when the world had gone quiet, when there were no visitors, no deliveries, no messages to answer, that's when we found our breakthrough. Let me ask you something. What could you accomplish with an extra 2 hours each day? What might you create if you seized those quiet moments while the world sleeps? Most people look at extended hours as a burden. They see it as something to be endured, survived, escaped. But true inventors, we see these hours as opportunities. Every quiet moment is a chance to advance. Every peaceful hour is an opportunity to create. In my life, I've found that the world belongs to those who are willing to stay awake for it. While others dream about success, you can be building it. While others wait for opportunity, you can be creating it. While others rest on their achievements, you can be surpassing them. Now, I'm not suggesting you never sleep. That's not sustainable, and it's not smart. What I am suggesting is that you get strategic about your hours. Find those pockets of quiet time. Seize those moments of uninterrupted focus. Build your advantage in the margins of the day. You see, success isn't just about working hard. It's about working smart. And sometimes working smart means working while others sleep. It means using those quiet hours when your mind is clear and the world is still. Think about it. Every hour you work while others sleep is an hour they can never catch up on. Every advance you make in those quiet moments is an advantage they can't easily overcome. You're not just working more, you're working ahead. In my laboratory, we didn't see late hours as a sacrifice. We saw them as an investment in progress, an investment in innovation, an investment in beating the odds and changing the world. Remember, the difference between ordinary and extraordinary often comes down to what you do with those extra hours. While they sleep, you can build. While they rest, you can rise. While they wait for tomorrow, you can create it tonight. So, let me challenge you. What will you do with your extra hours? What will you build while the world sleeps? Because in those quiet moments, in those still hours, that's when history is made. Solve real problems. Let me tell you why I never invented a flying machine. Everyone expected me to try. The newspapers kept asking when Edison would tackle flight. But I looked at the world around me and saw people dying in house fires from gas, lamps, I saw factories limited by inadequate power. I saw communications restricted by slow, primitive methods. These were real problems affecting real people every day. You see, there's a dangerous romance in the world of innovation, the idea that the most impressive invention is the most exotic one. But here's what I learned through decades of invention. The greatest innovations don't dazzle people. They help them. When I invented the light bulb, I wasn't trying to create something magical. I was trying to solve a problem that killed thousands of people every year through fire and gas explosions. When I developed the phonograph, I wasn't trying to create wonder. I was trying to solve the problem of preserving and transmitting sound. Here's what most people don't understand about true innovation. It's not about creating something new. It's about creating something necessary, something that solves a real problem for real people. I remember when one of my young assistants came to me with an idea for a device that could project colored patterns on clouds. Technically impressive? Yes. Creatively innovative? Absolutely. But I asked him one question. What human problem does this solve? He couldn't answer. That idea never left the drawing board. Let me ask you something. What real problem are you trying to solve? Not what cool thing are you trying to build? What human need are you trying to meet? What genuine pain point are you trying to eliminate? And my laboratory, we had a rule. Every invention had to serve a purpose. Not a theoretical purpose, not a possible purpose, a real, immediate human purpose. Because here's another truth about innovation. The world doesn't pay for interesting, it pays for useful. Most inventors get this backwards. They start with a solution and then go looking for a problem. They create something clever and then try to convince the world it needs it. But true innovation works in the opposite direction. It starts with the problem. It starts with the need. It starts with the human element. Think about the electric light system. Yes, the technology was revolutionary. Yes, the engineering was groundbreaking. But what made it successful? It solved real problems. It made homes safer. It made nights productive. It made cities more secure. It changed how people lived and worked in fundamental ways. This is the difference between invention and innovation. Invention creates something new. Innovation creates something necessary. And the world is hungry for innovators who understand this difference. You see, when you focus on solving real problems, something magical happens. Resistance decreases. When people can clearly see how your innovation will improve their lives, you don't have to convince them to adopt it. They convince themselves. I've seen countless brilliant inventors fail because they fell in love with their solutions instead of falling in love with the problems they were solving. They created amazing technologies that nobody needed. They built incredible machines that solved no real problems. Here's another truth about problem-solving innovation. It creates its own momentum. When you solve one real problem, you often discover 10 more that need solving. When you improve one aspect of people's lives, you uncover other areas that need improvement. Real problems are like breadcrumbs. They lead you to more opportunities. My work with the telegraph solving the problem of speed led us to discover problems with clarity. Solving problems with clarity led us to discover problems with reliability. Each solution revealed new challenges, new opportunities, new chances. To innovate, remember, the world doesn't need more interesting inventions. It needs more necessary ones. It doesn't need more clever solutions. It needs more helpful ones. Don't ask yourself what you can create. Ask yourself what you can solve. So let me challenge you. What real problem are you solving? What genuine human need are you addressing? Because if you can't answer these questions, you're not really innovating. You're just inventing. Patents don't matter without purpose. Let me tell you about my first patent. It was for an electronic vote recorder, a device that could instantly tally votes in the legislature. Technically sound, legally protected, completely useless. Why? Because legislators didn't want to speed up voting. They wanted time to lobby and negotiate during the voting process. I had a patent, but I didn't have a purpose. Here's what most people don't understand about patents. They don't protect your success. They only protect your right to succeed. A patent is not an achievement, it's not an end point, it's barely even a beginning. You see, I hold over 1,000 patents. But do you know what matters more than all those patents combined? The fact that I turned those protected ideas into real products that solved real problems for real people. A patent in a drawer is just expensive paper. A patent in action is innovation. Let me tell you something that might shock you. Some of my most profitable inventions weren't even patented. Why? Because I understood that speed to market, practical execution, and actual implementation matter far more than legal protection. Most inventors get this completely backwards. They treat the patent as the finish line. They pour their resources into protecting an idea before they've proven it's worth protecting. They celebrate the patent certificate instead of celebrating actual impact. I remember one inventor who came to me, proud of his new patent. "Now, nobody can steal my idea," he said. I asked him, "But can you build it? Can you scale it? Can you get it to the people who need it?" He couldn't answer. His patent was perfect. His execution plan was non-existent. Let me ask you something. Are you more focused on protecting your ideas or implementing them? Are you more concerned with preventing copying or creating impact? In my laboratory, we had a saying, "Patents are permissions, not promises." They give you permission to build something without interference, but they don't promise that what you build will matter. They don't guarantee success. They don't ensure impact. Here's another truth about patents that most people miss. The most valuable part of the patent process isn't the protection, it's the crystallization of your idea. When you have to describe your invention clearly enough for legal protection, you're forced to think it through completely. That clarity is worth more than the patent itself. I've seen countless inventors drain their resources fighting patent battles while their competitors focused on building and selling products. They won the legal fight, but lost the market war. They protected their idea, but never turned it into reality. Think about the light bulb. Yes, we patented it. But what made it revolutionary wasn't the patent. It was the entire system we built around it. The power stations, the distribution network, the installation processes. Some of these weren't patented at all. We just built them faster and better than anyone else could. This is the paradox of patents. The more you focus on protecting an idea, the less energy you have for implementing it. The more resources you pour into prevention, the fewer you have for creation. Don't misunderstand me. Patents have their place. They're useful tools in the inventor's arsenal, but they're not the weapon that wins the war. Execution wins the war. Implementation wins the war. Actually solving real problems for real people wins the war. You see, the market doesn't care about your patents. It cares about your products. Customers don't buy your legal protection. They buy your solutions. Society isn't improved by what you prevent others from doing. It's improved by what you actually do. Here's the reality about innovation. While you're paying lawyers to protect your idea, someone else is out there building something similar. While you're filing patents, they're filing customer orders. While you're preventing copying, they're perfecting execution. Remember, patents don't change the world. Products do. Protection doesn't solve problems. Implementation does. Don't let the pursuit of patents distract you from the real work of innovation. So let me challenge you. What matters more to you, protecting your ideas or implementing them? Because at the end of the day, it's not about what you prevent others from doing. It's about what you actually do. One focused flame burns brighter. Let me tell you about the moment I decided to focus entirely on the electric light problem. I had dozens of other projects underway, improvements to the telegraph, refinements to the phonograph, new ideas for mining operations. But I saw something most didn't, the power of absolute focus. I shut down every other project in my laboratory. I redirected every resource, every mind, every hour to this single challenge. People thought I was mad. Edison is abandoning his successful ventures for a fool's errand, they said. But here's what they didn't understand. 1,000 matches can't burn through steel, but one focused beam of light can cut through anything. You see, there's a dangerous myth in the world of innovation. The idea that you should diversify your efforts, spread your bets, keep your options open. But breakthrough innovation doesn't work that way. Real transformation demands concentration, total, absolute, uncompromising focus. When I say focus, I don't mean working on one thing for an hour and then switching to another. I mean becoming. Obsessed with a single problem. I mean thinking about it when you wake up, while you eat, when you're supposed to be doing other things. I mean letting it consume you. Here's what most people don't understand about concentrated effort. It's not just about working harder on one thing. It's about achieving a state of mind where that one thing becomes your whole world, where every conversation somehow relates back to it, where every observation might hold a clue to its solution. I remember one of my assistants who prided himself on working on 5 different innovations simultaneously. "I'm maximizing my chances of success," he'd say. But after a year, he had 5 half-finished projects and 0 breakthroughs. He was dividing his flame until it could no longer burn through anything. Let me ask you something. What would happen if you took all the energy you're spreading across multiple projects and focused it on your most important challenge? What could you achieve with that kind of concentration? In my laboratory at Menlo Park, we discovered something profound. When an entire team focuses on a single problem, they don't just add their efforts, they multiply them. Ideas cross-pollinate. Solutions build on solutions. The collective mind becomes a magnifying glass, focusing all its rays on one point until breakthrough becomes inevitable. Most people make the mistake of thinking that more projects mean more opportunities. They scatter their resources, split their attention, divide their energy. But here's the truth. One project carried to completion is worth more than 100 half-finished ones. Think about how nature works. A river dispersed into 100 streams loses its power, but channel it through a narrow gorge, and it can carve through mountains. The sun's rays, scattered, can barely warm your skin. But focus them through a lens, and they can start a fire. This is the secret of breakthrough innovation. It's not about having more ideas. It's about having more focus. It's not about starting more projects. It's about finishing the right one. I've seen countless brilliant minds fail because they couldn't commit to a single direction. They were so afraid of missing opportunities that they missed the biggest opportunity of all, the power of undivided attention. Here's another truth about focused effort. It compounds over time. Each hour of concentrated work doesn't just add to your progress, it multiplies it. Because when you're truly focused, you're not just working, you're building momentum. You're creating depth. You're developing insights that only come from complete immersion. In my work with the light bulb, every hour of focus made the next hour more valuable. Every day of concentration made the next day more productive. Because we weren't just accumulating hours, we were accumulating understanding. We were building a depth of knowledge that would have been impossible with divided attention. Remember, the world doesn't reward those who start the most projects. It rewards those who complete the most valuable ones. It doesn't celebrate those with the most ideas. It celebrates those who bring the most important ideas to life. So, let me challenge you. What's the one thing that deserves your absolute, undivided focus? What challenge, if solved, would change everything? Because that's where your flame needs to burn. That's where your energy needs to flow. That's where your mind needs to live until breakthrough becomes inevitable. Create your own luck. Let me tell you about the day we discovered the carbon filament for the light bulb. People called it a lucky break. They said we stumbled upon it. But here's what they didn't see: the thousands of materials we had already tested, the systematic documentation of every attempt, the carefully organized library of failures that led us directly to that lucky moment. You see, there's a dangerous misconception in the world of innovation that breakthroughs come from lucky accidents. That great inventions spring from fortunate coincidences. But I'm here to tell you, luck is just a label lazy people use to explain what focused people earn. When people called me lucky for my successes, I would show them my notebooks. Thousands of pages, countless experiments, meticulous records, because here's what most people don't understand about luck. It's not a random gift from the universe. It's the inevitable result of systematic effort. I remember one visitor to my laboratory asking about the secret to my lucky discoveries. I showed him our experimental logs, over 50,000 entries for the storage battery alone. But that's not luck, he said. That's work. Exactly. Let me ask you something. How many people do you know who complain about others being lucky, while those same lucky people are working while everyone else sleeps? Who call others fortunate, while those fortunate ones are conducting their 1,000th experiment? In my laboratory, we had a saying, luck favors the prepared mind. But it's more than that. Luck favors the prepared mind, the disciplined hand, and the relentless spirit. It favors those who create systems to capture it, who build processes to attract it, who work so thoroughly that they make it inevitable. Most people see luck as something that happens to you, but real innovators understand that luck is something you happen to. You create it through consistent action. You attract it through persistent effort. You capture it through careful preparation. Think about how we developed the phonograph. People called it a lucky inspiration. But they didn't see the years of work with telegraph repeaters that taught us about sound reproduction. They didn't see the countless experiments with different materials and mechanisms. They didn't see the systematic exploration of every possibility. Here's another truth about created luck. It compounds. Each experiment you conduct, each failure you document, each insight you record, they all build on each other. They create a foundation that makes future luck more likely. I've seen brilliant minds fail because they waited for luck to find them. They had the talent, they had the ideas, but they didn't have the systems. They didn't do the work that makes luck inevitable. You see, when people call something a lucky break, they're usually looking at the end of a long chain of effort. They see the final moment of discovery, but they miss the thousands of moments of preparation that made that discovery possible. In my work with electric light, every lucky breakthrough was actually the result of systematic exploration. We didn't just try random materials for filaments. We worked through them methodically, documenting everything, learning from each failure, building a map that eventually led us to success. This is the reality about innovation. The more thoroughly you prepare, the luckier you get. The more systems you build, the more fortunate you become. The more experiments you conduct, the more discoveries you make. Remember that day we found the right carbon filament? We were ready for that discovery. Our documentation told us which materials we had tried. Our systems helped us understand why it worked. Our preparation turned a moment of discovery into a breakthrough innovation. Here's what separates real inventors from dreamers. We don't wait for luck. We engineer it. We don't hope for fortunate accidents. We create conditions that make them inevitable. We don't cross our fingers. We cross every T and dot every I until success becomes a mathematical certainty. So let me challenge you. How are you preparing for your lucky breakthrough? What systems are you building to capture opportunity? What processes are you creating to make success inevitable? Because luck isn't something that happens to you. It's something you create through relentless, systematic effort. Remember, fortune doesn't favor the bold. It favors the prepared. It doesn't reward the passionate. It rewards the persistent. It doesn't bless the talented. It blesses the thorough. Turn repetition into refinement. Let me tell you about my work with the telegraph. For years, I spent 8 hours a day, every day, sending and receiving messages. Most operators saw this as mundane repetition, but I saw each message as a chance to experiment with timing, with clarity, with efficiency. I didn't just repeat the work, I refined it every single day. You see, there's a profound difference between doing something again and doing something better, between repetition and refinement, between practice and perfection. Most people don't understand this distinction, and that's why they stay stuck in mediocrity. Here's what most people don't understand about mastery. It's not about how many times you do something, it's about how many times you improve something. Each repetition should be an experiment, each attempt should be an advancement. In my laboratory, we never simply repeated experiments. We refined them, changed variables, adjusted parameters, questioned assumptions. Every iteration was an opportunity to learn something new, to see something different, to understand something deeper. Let me ask you something. When you repeat a process, are you just going through the motions, or are you actively seeking ways to improve it? Are you merely accumulating hours, or are you accumulating insights? Most people treat repetition like a photocopy machine, trying to produce the exact same result over and over. But true inventors, we treat repetition like a spiral staircase. Each turn brings you higher, shows you a new perspective, reveals new possibilities. I remember one of my assistants who prided himself on performing the same experiment exactly the same way every time. Consistency is key, he'd say. But he missed the point entirely. The goal isn't to be consistently adequate, it's to be consistently better. Think about how we developed the phonograph. Each prototype wasn't just a repeat of the last, it was an evolution. We didn't just make the same machine over and over. We questioned every component, challenged every assumption, refined every element. Each iteration taught us something new about sound, about materials, about mechanics. Here's another truth about refinement. It requires attention. You can't improve what you don't observe. You can't perfect what you don't analyze. Every repetition should be an opportunity for observation, for analysis, for learning. In my work with the light bulb, we didn't just try the same materials repeatedly. We studied each failure, analyzed each success, documented each variation. Every attempt was a data point. Every repetition was research. This is the secret to turning repetition into refinement. You must become a scientist of your own work. Every attempt is an experiment. Every result is data. Every failure is feedback. Most people see repetition as boring. They try to minimize it, avoid it, get it over with. But here's the truth. Repetition is only boring if you're not paying attention. If you're truly observing, analyzing, questioning, and refining, even the most routine task becomes an adventure in improvement. I've seen countless talented people plateau because they confused repetition with refinement. They thought putting in the hours was enough. They thought going through the motions was sufficient. They failed to understand that mastery isn't about time served, it's about improvements made. Let me tell you about our approach to manufacturing. We never simply repeated the same process. Each production run was an opportunity to improve efficiency, reduce waste, increase quality. We turned every repetition into a refinement, every cycle into an upgrade, every iteration into an innovation. This is how real progress happens, not through dramatic leaps, but through persistent refinement. Not through occasional breakthroughs, but through consistent improvement. Not through doing things again, but through doing things better. Here's what separates great inventors from mere technicians. We don't just repeat processes, we refine them. We don't just accumulate experience, we accumulate understanding. We don't just put in time, we invest it in improvement. Remember, the goal isn't to do something 1,000 times. The goal is to improve something 1,000 times. Each repetition should bring you closer to perfection. Each attempt should teach you something new. Each cycle should leave you better than the last. So, let me challenge you. How will you turn your next repetition into refinement? What will you observe? What will you question? What will you improve? Because the difference between stagnation and innovation isn't in what you do, it's in how you do it. Your environment is a lab. Let me tell you about the day I realized every train car was a laboratory. I was working as a telegraph operator, but I saw more than just messages coming through those wires. I saw patterns in the static, rhythms in the interference, possibilities in the problems. That railroad car became my first real laboratory, not because of any equipment it contained, but because of how I chose to see it. You see, most people walk through their world with their eyes half closed. They see their environment as fixed, unchangeable, just the backdrop to their lives. But true inventors, we see every environment as a laboratory, every setting as an experiment, every moment as data waiting to be collected. Here's what most people don't understand about innovation. Your laboratory isn't a place, it's a perspective. It's not about having the right equipment, it's about having the right mindset. Every room is a research facility if you know how to look at it. I remember watching a fly walking on the ceiling of my laboratory. Most people would have shooed it away. But I studied it. What mechanism allowed it to defy gravity? What principles could we learn from its feet? What innovations might this inspire? Nature was conducting experiments right above my head. Let me ask you something. What experiments are happening in your environment right now? What data is your world trying to show you? What lessons are you missing because you're not treating your surroundings as a laboratory? In my life, every setting became a testing ground. Restaurant tables became places to experiment with different materials for phonograph diaphragms. Train rides became opportunities to study vibration and sound. Even casual conversations became experiments in human psychology and communication. Most people make the mistake of waiting for the perfect laboratory conditions. They think they need special equipment, controlled environments, perfect circumstances. But some of the greatest discoveries in history came from people who turned their everyday environment into a laboratory. Think about how we developed the motion picture camera. The inspiration didn't come from expensive equipment. It came from watching horses gallop, from studying how the human eye processes movement, from observing life in motion. The world was our laboratory. Here's another truth about environmental observation. Everything is data. The way people move through a room, the way materials wear down over time, the way sounds echo off different surfaces. Every observation is an experiment waiting to be understood. I've seen brilliant minds fail because they couldn't see the laboratory in their everyday life. They were waiting for perfect conditions instead of perfecting their powers of observation. They wanted a controlled environment instead of controlling their attention. In my work with electric light, some of our most important insights came from observing how people used existing lighting in their homes and businesses. Every room we entered became a research facility. Every complaint we heard became an experiment to solve. This is the secret to turning your environment into a laboratory. You must develop the habit of constant questioning. Why does this work this way? What principles are at play here? How could this be improved? What problems need solving? Most people see a coffee shop and think about caffeine. I see fluid dynamics, heat transfer, social behavior patterns, and dozens of problems waiting to be solved. Every setting is rich with data if you train yourself to see it. Here's what separates great inventors from casual observers. We don't just pass through our environment, we study it. We don't just experience it, we experiment with it. We don't just accept it, we analyze it. Remember how I started in that railroad car? I didn't have fancy equipment. I didn't have perfect conditions. But I had something more valuable. I had the mindset that turned every setting into a laboratory, every moment into an experiment, every observation into data. Let me share another secret. The best laboratories are often the most unexpected ones. A busy street can teach you more about human behavior than any controlled experiment. A failing machine can reveal more about engineering than any textbook. A natural phenomenon can inspire more innovations than any research facility. So let me challenge you. How will you turn your current environment into a laboratory? What experiments are waiting to be conducted in your everyday life? What data are you failing to collect? Because the world's greatest laboratory is wherever you are right now, if you have the eyes to see it and the mind to use it. Remember, your environment isn't just where you live and work, it's where you experiment and discover. Every setting is a laboratory. Every moment is an experiment. Every observation is data. The only question is, are you ready to start seeing it that way? Think with your hands. Let me tell you about the day a well-educated young man came to my laboratory, arms full of papers covered in elaborate theoretical calculations about electric light. He had equations, theories, and complex mathematical models. I asked him one simple question: have you ever made anything glow? He hadn't. He thought with his mind, but he never thought with his hands. You see, there's a dangerous myth in the world of innovation, that great inventions come from great theories, that breakthrough ideas emerge from pure thought. But I'm here to tell you, the mind can imagine, but only the hands can prove. Only the hands can discover what theory misses. Here's what most people don't understand about innovation. It's not just an intellectual exercise, it's a physical dialogue with reality. Every time your hands touch materials, every time you build a prototype, every time you run an experiment, you're having a conversation with the real world that no amount of pure thinking can replace. In my laboratory, we had a rule. No idea was real until you could hold it. Theory was just a starting point. The real work, the real thinking, happened when we started building, testing, failing, and rebuilding, when we started thinking with our hands. I remember one of my most educated assistants who could explain in perfect detail why a certain design should work. His theories were flawless. His mathematics was impeccable. But when we built it, nothing. Because reality doesn't read textbooks. Reality doesn't follow theories. Reality only responds to what you actually build. Let me ask you something. How much of your innovative energy is spent in pure thought, and how much is spent in pure action? How many of your ideas have you actually touched, built, tested with your own hands? Most people hide behind planning. They hide behind theory. They hide behind the false security of pure thought. But true inventors, we get our hands dirty. We build rough prototypes. We create crude models. We think through our fingers. Think about how we developed the phonograph. The theory said it shouldn't work. The mathematics suggested it was impossible. But our hands discovered something that our minds couldn't calculate, that tiny grooves in tinfoil could capture the human voice. Here's another truth about physical thinking. It reveals problems that theory misses. When you actually build something, you discover challenges that no amount of planning could predict. You find opportunities that no amount of theory could suggest. I've seen brilliant minds fail because they couldn't bridge the gap between thinking and doing. They had magnificent ideas but couldn't translate them into physical reality. They could imagine solutions but couldn't build them. In my work with the storage battery, all the theoretical calculations said certain materials should work perfectly. But when we actually built and tested them, failure after failure. It was only through physical experimentation, through thinking with our hands, that we discovered what really worked. This is the secret to real innovation. Your hands must verify what your mind imagines. Your fingers must test what your brain suggests. Your physical experience must validate your mental expectations. Most people try to think their way through problems. But some problems can only be solved through touch, through trial, through physical engagement with the real world. Some solutions can only be discovered through the intelligence of your hands. Here's what separates great inventors from mere theorists. We don't just think about solutions, we build them. We don't just imagine possibilities, we test them. We don't just calculate what should work, we discover what does work. Remember that young man with his theoretical calculations? I had him build a simple experimental setup. Within an hour, his hands had taught him more about electric light than all his equations ever could. Because theory can suggest, but only practice can prove. In my laboratory, Every table was a thinking surface. Every tool was an extension of our thoughts. Every material was a way to translate ideas into reality. We didn't just think about innovation, we touched it, shaped it, built it with our own hands. So let me challenge you. What idea are you keeping trapped in your mind? What theory are you hiding behind? What solution are you thinking about instead of building? Because until your hands join the conversation, you're only getting half the story. Remember, your mind can imagine the possible, but your hands discover the practical. Your brain can theorize the perfect, but your fingers find the real. Don't just think your ideas, build them. Protect the quiet furnace. Let me tell you about my private workshop at Menlo Park. It was a small room tucked away from the main laboratory. No telegraph lines, no messengers, no interruptions. The world called it isolation. I called it incubation. Because true innovation isn't born in the noise, it's forged in the quiet. You see, there's a dangerous misconception in the world of innovation, that great ideas come from constant collaboration, endless communication, perpetual connection. But I'm here to tell you, the deepest insights, the most revolutionary breakthroughs, they emerge from protected solitude, from guarded silence, from what I call the quiet furnace of focused thought. Here's what most people don't understand about innovative thinking. It's not just about having time to think. It's about having uninterrupted time to think deeply, to let ideas simmer, to let connections form, to let insights crystallize. In my life, I created deliberate periods of isolation, not because I was antisocial, I loved working with my team, but because I understood that some problems can only be solved in the quiet. Some insights can only emerge in the silence. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you had 3 uninterrupted hours to focus on a single problem? When was the last time you let your mind work without the constant interruption of messages, notifications, and demands? Most people have forgotten how to be alone with their thoughts. They've lost the art of sustained concentration. They've surrendered their quiet furnace to the constant noise of the modern world. I remember one brilliant inventor who couldn't understand why his creativity had dried up. His mind was sharp, his skills were strong, but his ideas were shallow. Then I visited his workshop, phones ringing, messages flowing, interruptions every few minutes. He had all the tools for innovation except the most important one, protected silence. Think about how the phonograph was born, not in a crowded meeting, not in a busy laboratory, but in quiet moments of deep contemplation, when my mind could fully explore the possibility of capturing sound. The quiet furnace of focused thought turned that possibility into reality. Here's another truth about protected thinking time. It's not just about duration, it's about depth. An hour of truly focused thought is worth more than a day of fragmented attention. A moment of real clarity can achieve more than months of scattered effort. I've seen countless talented minds fail because they couldn't protect their quiet furnace. They let every interruption in. They responded to every demand. They kept their door open when it needed to be closed. In my workshop at Menlo Park, we had strict rules about interruptions during deep work periods. Not because we were unfriendly, but because we understood that creative thought is like a deep-sea dive. Every time you're pulled to the surface, you have to start the descent all over again. This is the secret to maintaining your quiet furnace. You must be ruthless about protecting it. You must guard it like a treasure. You must defend it like territory. Because in those protected moments, in that guarded silence, that's where the real magic happens. Most people treat focused time as a luxury, something to fit in between other demands. But true inventors, we treat it as a necessity, as essential as air, as crucial as fuel. Because without that protected time, without that quiet furnace, innovation simply cannot happen. Think about the light bulb. Yes, it required experiments. Yes, it required materials. But before all that, it required protected time to think deeply about the nature of light, heat, and electricity. It required a quiet furnace where ideas could be forged. Here's what separates great inventors from the merely busy. We don't just find time to think, we protect time to think deeply. We don't just work, we create conditions for deep work. We don't just hope for insights, we build sanctuaries where insights can emerge. Remember, the world will always try to invade your quiet furnace. It will send interruptions, create urgencies, demand responses. Your job isn't just to find quiet moments, it's to defend them with everything you have. So let me challenge you. How will you protect your quiet furnace? What boundaries will you set? What interruptions will you eliminate? Because your next breakthrough isn't hiding in the noise, it's waiting in the silence. Make time. Your ally, let me tell you about the day I realized time wasn't my enemy. It was my greatest ally. I was working on the storage battery, facing thousands of failed experiments. Most people saw those hours as wasted time, but I saw each hour as an investment, each day as compound interest building toward an inevitable breakthrough. Because time doesn't just pass, it accumulates. You see, there's a fundamental misunderstanding about time in the world of innovation. People think it's about speed, about racing against the clock, about beating deadlines. But I'm here to tell you, it's not about fighting time. It's about making time work for you. Here's what most people don't understand about time. It either compounds or corrodes. It either builds up or breaks down. It either works for you or against you. The difference isn't in the time itself. It's in how you use it. In my laboratory, we developed a different relationship with time. We didn't chase it. We didn't rush it. We harnessed it. We made it our partner in innovation. Every hour was an opportunity to learn, to build, to advance, even if we didn't succeed immediately. Let me ask you something. Is time your enemy or your ally? Are you always racing against it, or are you making it work for you? Are you letting it slip away, or are you investing it? Most people treat time like sand in an hourglass, watching it slip away, feeling pressured by its passage. But true inventors, we treat time like a garden, planting seeds, nurturing growth, knowing that proper investment will yield inevitable returns. I remember one inventor who was always in a rush, always trying to beat the clock, always cutting corners to save time. His innovations were like houses built on sand, quick to rise, quick to fall. He never understood that time wasn't his enemy. His relationship with time was. Think about how we developed the electric light system. It wasn't a race against time. It was a partnership with time. Each experiment, each failure, each insight built upon the ones before it. Time wasn't passing. It was accumulating. It wasn't running out. It was building up. Here's another truth about mastering time. It's not about having more of it. It's about using it more effectively. An hour of focused, strategic work is worth more than a day of scattered effort. A moment of true insight is worth more than months of mindless activity. I've seen brilliant minds fail because they couldn't master time. They either rushed through their work, missing crucial details, or they dawdled, letting precious hours slip away without purpose. They never learned to make time their ally. In my work with the phonograph, every hour spent understanding sound reproduction built upon every hour before it. Time wasn't just passing, it was compounding. Knowledge wasn't just accumulating, it was multiplying. Each day made the next day more valuable. This is the secret to making time your ally. You must understand its compound nature, like interest. In a bank account, properly invested time doesn't just add up, it multiplies. Each hour of focused work makes future hours more productive. Each day of dedicated effort makes future days more effective. Most people see time as linear, 60 minutes, 24 hours, 7 days. But true inventors see time as exponential. We understand that an hour properly invested today can save days in the future. That time spent learning compounds into time saved innovating. Here's what separates great inventors from the perpetually busy. We don't just spend time, we invest it. We don't just use time, we leverage it. We don't just pass through time, we make it work for us. Remember how we worked on the light bulb? Each experiment took time. Each failure consumed hours, but those weren't hours lost. They were investments made. Each attempt built our knowledge, refined our approach, brought us closer to success. Time wasn't our enemy, it was our accomplice in innovation. So let me challenge you, how will you make time your ally? How will you turn its passage into progress? How will you transform its flow into growth? Because time will pass whether you use it wisely or waste it carelessly. The choice isn't about how much time you have, it's about how you use what you have. Remember, time doesn't just pass, it compounds. It doesn't just flow, it accumulates. It doesn't just move forward, it builds up. The question is, are you ready to make it your greatest ally in innovation? Die empty, let me tell you about my last day in the laboratory. I was 84 years old working on a project about rubber plants. My family thought I should rest. My doctors advised against it, but I knew something they didn't. The greatest tragedy in life isn't dying. It's dying with your best ideas still inside you. You see, there's a dangerous comfort that creeps into the lives of inventors, the comfort of achievement, the satisfaction of past success, the temptation to rest on what you've already created. But I'm here to tell you, your best ideas aren't behind you, they're still inside you, waiting to be released. Here's what most people don't understand about innovation. It's not just about what you create, it's about what you leave behind. Not just the inventions you patent, but the possibilities you open up for others. Not just what you build, but what you inspire others to build. In my life, I never wanted to reach the end and think, what if? What if I had tried one more experiment? What if I had pursued one more idea? What if I had worked one more day? The thought of dying full of unrealized innovations was more frightening than death itself. Let me ask you something. What ideas are you holding back? What innovations are you postponing? What contributions are you waiting to make? Because time won't wait, and neither should you. Most people save their best ideas for later. They wait for the perfect moment, the right resources, the ideal conditions. But true inventors, we empty ourselves daily. We pour every idea, every insight, every innovation into the world while we can. I remember one brilliant inventor who always talked about what he would create someday. He had notebooks full of ideas, sketches full of possibilities, minds full of innovations, but he never emptied himself. He died full of potential, full of unrealized dreams, full of someday projects that never saw the light of day. Think about how we worked at Menlo Park. We didn't hold back. We didn't save our best ideas for later. We emptied ourselves into every project, every experiment, every innovation, because we understood that ideas kept inside don't change the world. Here's another truth about dying empty. It's not about exhausting yourself. It's about expressing yourself fully. It's not about working yourself to death. It's about bringing your best ideas to life while you can. I've seen countless talented minds fail because they held too much back. They saved their best ideas for later. They waited for permission, for validation, for the perfect moment. They died full of untapped potential, unexpressed creativity, unrealized innovations. In my own work, even in my final years, I kept pushing, not because I had to, but because I couldn't bear the thought of taking my insights to the grave. Every day was an opportunity to empty another idea into the world, to leave behind another possibility, to open another door for future innovators. This is the secret to dying empty. You have to live full. You have to pursue every idea worth pursuing. You have to empty yourself of every innovation worth creating, because the ideas you take to your grave help no one. Most people think about leaving a legacy after they're gone, but true inventors, we build our legacy every day. We empty ourselves into our work daily. We don't wait for tomorrow to share what we could share today. Here's what separates great inventors from dreamers. We don't die full of potential. We die empty of everything except the joy of having given it all. We don't leave our best ideas locked inside. We set them free to change the world. Remember my work with electric light? I didn't wait until I had perfected it to share it. I emptied every idea, every attempt, every failure, every success into the world. Because I understood that even our failures can light the way for others. So let me challenge you one final time. What are you still holding back? What ideas are you saving for later? What innovations are you keeping inside? Because later isn't guaranteed, tomorrow isn't promised. The only time you can be sure of is now. Remember, the world doesn't need your potential. It needs your contribution. It doesn't need what you could do someday. It needs what you will do today. Don't die full of ideas. Die empty of everything except the satisfaction of having given it all. This is your time. These are your ideas. This is your chance to innovate. Don't wait. Don't hold back. Don't save your best for later. Empty yourself into your work. Pour your ideas into the world. Leave nothing undone, because in the end, the only ideas that truly matter are the ones you set free.